Good evening, everyone. I shall just babble on for a couple of seconds whilst everyone's audio is connecting and everyone's coming in. It's really good of you to join us at this webinar this evening. I can see the participant numbers are totting up already. We've got the chat open. If you want to jump into the chat and introduce yourself, say hello, say where you're from, say a little bit about your circumstances, that would be great as well. The chat function is up there. Welcome to this webinar on travel and holidays. This is the second of our family support webinar series. At Tiny Tickers, we like to offer support to families in all sorts of different ways. We have facilitated peer support groups. We've got our Facebook groups, all the family stories that we share, all of the information across our website and in our support packs. And now we're starting to do these webinars as well. And we're going to do all sorts of different topics. If you've got any topics you want to suggest, then feel free to get in touch with us to suggest them. We're going to do a series of webinars over the coming months on different topics. The first webinar in the series, which was on mental health and wellbeing, is already available on our website. If you weren't able to attend at the time, you can watch that back on our website. I should give a shout out to Global Make Some Noise, who are the funders of these webinar series. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, so we're very grateful to them. And of course, there's some of you who made a donation when you signed up for the webinar. I'm really grateful for all of those donations. They'll go towards our important charity work. So yeah, please do jump in the chat. We've got Vicky and Carly from the charity are in the chat. So if you've got any questions, any technical issues, they'll do their very best to support you through the chat there. I was going to say we're not IT experts. We've already had a bit of fun and games with one of the videos we're going to share, but fingers crossed everything will go okay. But we're not IT experts, so please do bear with us if there's any technical gremlins tonight. If you find yourself having some connectivity issues and you get booted out, you should just be able to go back to the joining link that was within the email that you would have received, and you should just be able to come straight back in again. So so there's that if you have any problems. To introduce myself, I'm John. I work for Tiny Tickers. I'm also a heart parent, so I've got a daughter who's now 17, who is not in this room but may come into the room at any point this evening. But she's 17, and so we've got a bit of experience of taking her on holiday when she was younger, which we'll talk about as the night goes on. And I should also introduce Gill, as you can see on the call. So Gill McBurney is a fetal and paediatric cardiac nurse specialist at Alderhay Children's Hospital in Liverpool in the northwest of England. Gill, do you just want to say hello and just explain your role a little bit more to kick us off?
I will do, yeah. So thank you very much for the invite. So I'm Gill. I'm one of the cardiac nurse specialists at Alderhay. Part of my role is working in the antenatal service at the Liverpool Women's Hospital with a colleague of mine. We have a job share, so anybody that's been to Liverpool might have met myself or Marie along the way. And I've done a couple of webinars for Tiny Tickers for sonographers, but this is my first parent webinar, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I'll be okay.
Fabulous, thank you, Gill. The first thing I'm going to do is, if I can make it work on the webinar, is put up a little poll. I'm intrigued to see everyone's experience. So I'm going to launch a poll that hopefully has come up on screen now. Please feel free to type in an answer. So we just want to know, have you taken your heart child on holiday yet? So yes, you've already gone abroad. Yes, we've been in the UK. No, we've not booked a holiday yet. We're thinking about it, or it's something that we're not too sure about at the moment, just to get a flavour of who we've got on the call. Whilst everyone's replying to that, I'll just explain a little bit of the format of the webinar. First thing we're going to do is to watch a video, which is 4 of us who are on the staff team at Tiny Tickers, all heart parents, just explaining a little bit about our experiences and bringing up some of the themes that you might be thinking about that we're going to explore tonight. There's about a 10-minute long video. And then we're going to go into a presentation that Gill has kindly put together for us, and that's the main bulk of the webinar. There'll be a chance to have some question and answers at the end as well. We're thinking we'll be wrapped up within the hour, hopefully, depending on how many questions we got, depending on any technical gremlins that we have, but 45 minutes to an hour, something like that. It is being recorded, so if you can't stay for the whole session, we'll send a link out and you'll be able to watch any bits that you've missed back again. So looking at the poll, it looks like most of the people are thinking about booking a holiday but haven't done it yet, or have a holiday booked and are about to go on it. Some people have experience as well. So that's kind of the blend that we were thinking about. So hopefully we'll be able to, thank you for answering that. Hopefully we'll be able to give you some hints and tips that will help you in that decision process and when you come to being on holiday. So the first thing I'm going to do is share the video that I mentioned then. So this is a few of us from the Tiny Tickers team who have experience of taking our children away on holiday. just talking about some of the themes, some of the decisions that we had to make. Now, we have just been sharing this, and I'll just let you know there was a bit of an issue with it. The video paused just near the start. The audio kept on playing, and then a few seconds later, the video caught up again. So hopefully that won't happen. But if it does, just bear tight. You should be able to hear the video well, hopefully, and then it will catch itself up, all being well. So we'll let you play this video, and we'll come back to you at the end of the video. It's just loading up now. Here we go. Let's get it up and running. Right, so hello everyone. This is our kind of round table discussion between some of us who work at Tiny Tickers, just talking about our experiences of taking our children with heart conditions on holiday. I'm John. I've got a daughter who's now 17. She was born with AVSD, had surgery when she was 3 weeks old. That's Zoe. Louise, do you want to introduce yourself and your heart child?
Yep, so I'm Louise and I've got a little one called Emmy, and she's coming up to 2 in August, and she has TGA.
Brilliant, thank you. And Nicola?
Hi there, I'm Nicola. My daughter Isabella, she's now 12. She was born with coarctation of the aorta and had surgery at 8 weeks old.
And Summer?
Yeah, I'm Summer and I've got a little boy called Jackson. He's 2 and he was born with a right aortic arch and vascular ring and a VSD, and he had surgery when he was 1.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've all been there. We've all made decisions to go on holiday, to not go on holiday, abroad, at home, whatever it might be. So hopefully some of our experiences will be useful as a starting point to think about this topic as part of this webinar. So to start us off then, I suppose we should think about when did we first start thinking about taking our child with a heart condition on holiday? At what age, at what point in their journey were you confident enough to take them away?
So we found once Isabella got to 6 months old, we were having fairly regular checkups, and she was progressing really well. The consultant was really happy, and we thought it'd be a really nice time to get a break for our family, and we decided to go away in the UK for a short break, just near a hospital, and lots of thoughts went through into that. But it gave us the confidence then to do a bit more, and yeah, to do a bit of traveling with her as she got older. So it was.
So you said near a hospital for that first holiday?
Yeah, oh yes, definitely. That was the first priority, was to suss out where we were going to be. So our heart hospital is Bristol, so we wanted a hospital that was affiliated or very close to that. So that formed the basis of where we were going to holiday. So we sussed out how far the hospital was, who the consultants were, if they had links to the hospital, took all the information with us, and that gave us an area to search in that we would then feel confident that we could get to that hospital if need be, or to contact somebody and have those discussions or anything, just the confidence to do that. So
it's a bit of extra reassurance for you as a parent as much as anything. It's very similar to our experience. We decided to take Zoe away when she was about 9 months old, I think. And again, in the UK, but we literally booked a hotel that was opposite the A&E car park for the hospital in the town that we went to. I don't think for any particular need of Zoe's, we weren't particularly worried about her, but it felt like that extra layer of reassurance for us. So who's been brave enough to take their child abroad then? Hands up if you have. We did, but Zoe was 16 when we went, so that feels like a bit of a cost. So Nicola, you went abroad a bit earlier than that.
We did, yeah. So once we'd been abroad in the UK, that gave us confidence then to think about going abroad.
Yeah.
Obviously it was different having to get travel insurance, making sure that we, had our consultant letter so that we had Isabella's condition listed and all of her medication written down, and then providing all that information, making sure that the insurance company would cover her for her condition. She'd obviously had her surgery by then and was, doing really well. So we discussed it at her last checkup and asked the consultant, is it something we could consider? And they were really supportive and said, it would be absolutely fine to travel, just, be aware of needing different insurance and things
I think
like
you've hit
that.
on a couple of key topics there. So I know insurance is something that we're going to be coming back to later in the webinar, but how did you find that process? Did you have to try a lot of different places, a lot of ringing around, a lot of
We
forms?
did. Yeah, we did actually, because obviously it was a whole new thing to us. We never, had to find a policy that covered an existing condition, and obviously it's quite complicated, a heart condition.
Yeah.
So it was a whole new game. The companies we'd used in the past wouldn't cover us, so we had some recommendations from I think it was the cardiac liaison nurses actually gave us a list of companies who would cover pre-existing conditions. So that gave us an option then of where to go and who to speak to, and we've used the same company ever since because they've got the information. It makes it a bit easier, and they sort of go through a few extra checks and just ask.
It makes sense. I remember the first time we took Zoe to the Channel Islands, where I'm from, and sort of filled in the online insurance form, and it was, if you tick this box, can you phone us up for a chat? And I think she ticked pretty much every box. I think that's the nature of it, is that you might have to shop around for insurance. You also mentioned the cardiologist, that you checked with the cardiologist before you went abroad and had that conversation. I remember our cardiologist saying, yeah, we can do a letter that has all the information involved, or any medication and treatment that she's had. And they even recommended that if we knew where we were going, then we could get it translated into that language just to make things a little bit easier if anything did happen. What were the specific things that you worried about then before you went on holiday?
So we took Jackson abroad when he was about 18 months old, which was about 6 months after his surgery. I'd say the biggest things I worried about, well, there's a long list really, but some of the things that seem like silly things really, but they're not at all. It's just, I was really worried about like his scar and the sun getting to it. So I literally had him constantly in like t-shirts and like the full swimsuits, or also like the thicker wetsuits as well, when I was worried about him getting cold. I think I just was so worried about keeping him covered up that no bit of sun would ever touch the scar. That was a big worry for me. I think the other thing, having not been abroad, and by the time we went abroad, I actually hadn't been away for quite a while because of COVID and things like that. So I was even just worried about getting, all his milk with us. At the time we went, luckily, he was off his medication, so that made that easier. But it was just he's still on like prescription formula milk. So getting all that through, I was panicking about that, and just making sure you have everything that you might need, like you said, Nicola, about having all the notes, list of diagnosis, everything that you could possibly need just in case.
Yeah.
I feel like when you take a baby abroad, it's always going to be a worry, isn't it? And then when you're taking away a baby with a heart condition, there is a lot of extra things to think about. So I do get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a fair point, actually, that taking any baby or any toddler on holiday is a big thing in itself. There's so much to think about, but then you have these extra layers, these extra fears and worries, I suppose. So, Nicola, you're going to say something.
Yeah, so I was worried about Isabella's scar actually, and not having too much sun, and also we've always found that she struggles a bit more in the heat, so that's something that we'd always considered when traveling, was to go like out of season. So we wouldn't go at like peak summer, we went more in the shoulder seasons. Obviously you can do that before they're at school, can't you? Because get a nice cheap one as well. So when it was sort of May, June time, it wouldn't have been as hot, so that we found that was a lot easier to manage, and it wasn't as busy, and it didn't feel quite so stressful. The planes aren't as full or anything like that, so that was quite a nice way to travel then. But yeah, she had like a full suit, the full arms and body sort of rash, like a rash vest, but and that just covered up her scar. And that was actually fine. We made sure she didn't get too cold or too hot, or so it's either she'd get too cold or too hot. So, but she managed it really well. She coped, and she actually had a lovely time, and it was really lovely to just have family time and do some normal things that almost felt a bit out of reach at one point. So
that brings us to the next question, really. Is it at any point did you worry that you were doing the right thing by taking your child abroad?
Oh, most definitely, yeah. I think having a heart child is a massive worry, isn't it? It changes your life, doesn't it? Like everything then becomes, you know, centered around the what ifs and what might and what do you need to do and the extra thinking and planning. So it was definitely, you know, a big consideration, but I think that's very normal with any child, isn't it? Let alone
there's a fear that you wrap them up in cotton wool a little bit too much, perhaps, and then you don't have those experiences and those memories, and
yeah,
you would as a normal family, and you kind of crave a little bit of that normality, don't you? I don't know.
yeah,
We went through such a difficult first few months with Zoe that and she was our first child as well. So you do then want to do the things that you anticipating you would do as a family. You do want to create those memories.
yeah.
Sorry, Louise, did you have any concerns about whether you were doing the right thing, whether it would have been easier to not go on holiday or?
Yeah, we did have a holiday. Sorry, Liz. We did have a holiday booked, like a bit sooner, to go abroad a bit sooner, but we cancelled it because it ended up being like about 2 months after Jackson's surgery. And looking back now, I think he would have been fine, and it probably would have been okay. But I was just so worried that, you know, what if things didn't go well, you know, post surgery? You just never know what's going to happen, do you? And I think it's just that constant worry of, I don't know if this is right, and it didn't feel right, so we ended up not going on it. And then by the time we did a few months later, I was a lot more relaxed, and I think he was doing so well that it didn't matter so much. So yeah, definitely think there was worry there to start with.
Absolutely. And Louise?
I do think as a heart parent, you will always have some worries, no doubt. But I feel like because it was in the UK and because I was with family, I did just naturally feel a bit better about that. But yeah, like I say, you just always have the worries, don't you, in the back of your head.
And there's no right or wrong answer, is it? There's no right time. There's no wrong time. It's just how you feel. And from what you were just saying, Summer, that perhaps if you had gone a little bit earlier, you'd have been more stressed. You wouldn't have enjoyed it so much. You'd have been fraught the whole time and anxious. Whereas that extra bit of time, it sounds like you then had a really nice break. I guess it also comes back to what you were saying earlier, Nicola, that if you're checking with your consultant and speaking to your cardiac liaison nurses, then you're going to get a sense of whether you think it's the right time or not. So I suppose just the final part is how was a holiday? Did you think you made the right decision? Did you have a fun? Did you manage to relax? Did you make some nice memories at the point that you were able to take your children abroad?
Yeah, absolutely. It was lovely, and I feel like, you know, it's a really hard time throughout your pregnancy, if you know when you're pregnant, and then once the baby's born and having the surgery, it's an incredibly stressful time. So I feel like it's nice for you, especially as a family, and if, you know, if your little one has siblings as well, like Amy has 2 older sisters, it feels nice to just be able to finally enjoy yourselves and relax a bit and just do, you know, like a normal thing. And it's something that when you're stuck in hospital walls, like you're just thinking, you know, when we get out, we can do all these things. It's something that you hope for. So yeah, I felt like it was really well needed and it was definitely enjoyed.
So you're pleased you did it. Sorry, Nicola, you were going to come in as well.
Oh, I totally agree with Louise. You know, Isabella's got a big sister, and we always felt that she missed out a bit, you know, on that sort of time, and like when we were in hospital, and that she didn't have all the fun times that we'd, you know, hoped. And so to be able to go away and have just a week together and feel a bit more normal, you know, that life was a bit easier again.
Summer, was anything you wanted to come in on that one?
Yeah, no, just completely agree with what you've both said there. I mean, like Louise said, you know, I think you go through such a stressful time that actually you need a break and you need to relax as much as you can on holiday with a little one. But you do, I think you need that for you, which is also so important, definitely.
Absolutely. That's a really good place to end it, I think, actually. You do need to, it's not a selfish thing, is it? You do need to look after yourself as well. And once you've done it once, the second time is easier, the third time's easier, the fourth time's easier. It feels like you're taking a big step that first time, but it sounds like from everyone's experience here, we all kind of did it at a sensible time. We did it in a cautious way, but in the right way. And then we all felt as though our families have benefited from doing it. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And I hope that's a really good starting point to the conversation and the rest of the webinar. So there we go. Hopefully that was, as I just said at the end there, strange watching yourself, isn't it? Hopefully that's a good starting point to the themes that we're going to be discussing tonight. Hopefully those little technical blips weren't too distracting. Thank you for bearing with us on that. But I'm sure those are some of the concerns, some of the thoughts, some of the ideas that you've all been thinking about yourselves. Thank you to everyone who's joined in the chat already. One thing I should have just mentioned at the start, when you're filling in the chat, you have the option to either just talk to the host or panelists or talk to everyone. So if you use the drop-down menu, you can choose who you're talking to in the chat as well. But thank you for those of you who have introduced yourselves already. So just reflecting on that conversation, when I went away from it, a couple of the things that I thought were the themes that came through were really that it's really normal to be anxious about taking your heart baby away for the first time. We'd all felt it. The fact that you're all here on the webinar shows that you're feeling it as well. It's a completely normal response. But if you put a bit of thought, a bit of preparation into it, then you can ease some of those stresses and some of those anxieties. And I guess that's what we're trying to help you with tonight. And then the other thing that was obvious is once we did it, we were all really pleased and delighted that we had gone away and we did make some amazing memories. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Gill, who's going to go through a presentation with some of those practical tips and thoughts that we've mentioned. So yeah, Gill, thank you very much for joining us again, and please take it away.
Okie dokie. So hi, it's gone very, very dull here in Liverpool, so I've had to put my little ring light on, I'm sorry, so I look very shiny. Yeah, it was really interesting listening to your round table then, because they're all the things that, they're the conversations that I have with families a lot of the time. Very much this time of year, we get to April and May, we have this conversation a lot with families about going away and what you need to do and things. So I'm really glad that you've asked me to do this. So obviously, I said before, I'm Gill McBurney, so I'm one of the cardiac nurse specialists in Alder Hey. So what we're going to talk about tonight is very much what that round table has just been talking about, what about going on holiday. But what I would say is most heart infants and most heart children don't really need to take any extra precautions. You need some preparation, a bit of a think about, like you were saying about where you're going, what you're going to do, but you quite often don't need to do much more than you would do with a child who doesn't have a heart condition. But this is going to be very general travel advice, but I would ask that please don't book a holiday on the strength of what I'm going to tell you right now, particularly if you've got a child who's got a single ventricle condition or a child who's pre-operative or those particular situations. I would say please speak to your cardiologist and your cardiac nurse specialists particularly about destinations and about flights. So as John had said as well then, his preparation I think is key. I think you need to have a little think, you need some thought into where you're going, what you're doing. So what I'm going to talk about is what to do, think about before even booking your holiday, a bit about travel insurance, but I know Vicky's going to talk a little bit about travel insurance as well, a bit about medication. I'm going to briefly touch on oxygen, a bit about paperwork, documents, things like that, and things to think about when you're there. So before booking, we would ask, and again, we get asked this a lot over the phone, cardiologists get asked this a lot in clinic, when can we go on holiday, what can we do, are we happy for you to go out of the country, are we happy for you to travel on an aeroplane to the south of France, maybe to India, maybe to Africa, maybe to America. So there are some places where we would be happy to support people going to, and there's some situations where we might be a little bit more cautious about where families are traveling to and what you're actually booking. So always think about that with your cardiologist and your nurse specialist, whether you're pre or post-op. Different units might say different things. We would let a family go on holiday or let a child go on holiday 6 weeks after open heart surgery. That might seem a little bit swift for some people, but that's kind of what we would advise. You could fly 6 weeks after bypass surgery if you've had an operation in Alder Hey. Think about long or short haul flights. How far are you actually having to travel? And then the other thing that is not available in every centre, but in some centres, is children, infants and children who are blue, who have got quite low oxygen saturations. Does the centre that you belong to provide some flight testing and that would give a little bit more support to how far or how long a journey you could go on an aeroplane? And then again, like everybody's just said in that round table, a supporting letter if you need it. If your last clinic letter is really good, you might not need any extra information. If nobody asks for a fit to fly letter, you might not need one, but you might do. But I'll talk a little bit about that when we go through. And then when I think you're looking to book, thinking about where you're going, the accommodation you're going to be in, are you going to be on a campsite? Are you going to be in a hotel? Are you going to be in a cottage? What else do you need? Do you need access to a lift? Would you need access to a fridge? And like you all said, is everybody, I think, looks to see where the nearest health centre is or the nearest hospital. And I think when you first start going on holiday with a child who's got a medical condition, I think you're very, very tuned in and very aware of where everything is. I think the more that families go on holiday, I think you become a little bit more confident about how you would manage certain situations. And I think the other thing to think about is your families don't always go away in the middle of summer, is to think about a winter holiday, a summer holiday, whichever kind of thing you're thinking about, what is different, what do we need to be thinking about? And then, like I said, at the bottom, geography, I wasn't sure how to title that little thing, but really think about the size of the complex you're going to. Are you going to be in a town, in a city? And thinking about, are you going to have access to a theme park, a water park, anything like that on your trip? So travel insurance, please sort out your insurance as soon as you possibly can after booking, because you never know what will happen. And that's obviously what insurance is all about. Most children with a heart condition, whether you've had a repair, whether you're pre-operative, whether you're post-op, whether you've got a single ventricle condition, whether you're 10 years past your surgery, 10 weeks past your surgery, you're undoubtedly will be put through to medical screening. And again, Vicky's going to talk a little bit about that afterwards. It can be very expensive, so again, please think about shopping around. There are insurance companies that just do medical, like pre-existing medical conditions. A lot of companies will insure anybody, but they'll put you through to medical screening and then give you a quote. And then I think the other thing is to ask for some advice. And often, again, these are sometimes the calls that we get. So we've recently had families that have phoned saying they're asking me about whether I'm post-op. Well, I am post-op, but it was 12 months ago. So you're not really post-op. You're actually just in a like a holding pattern really now. And then a lot of questions we get asked is about fit to fly letters. So we're always happy to provide fit to fly letters if your insurance company requests one, or your airline requests either a fit to fly letter, or airlines more likely now have a medical form that they would want a nurse specialist or a cardiologist to complete. So other things about preparation, planning, is think about your medications. How much are you actually going to need for your trip, and also a little bit beyond your trip. So when you first come home, you know, when you first get back from your holiday, the last thing you want to be doing then is thinking, I'm going to run out of meds tomorrow, I'm going to run out of meds tomorrow. And so have your medication for your trip, and then a little bit beyond. Think about liquid allowances. Now, the rules around liquid allowances on board flights is changing, but it's not actually changed everywhere yet. Think about, do you need a fridge if you've got a medication that actually needs to be in a fridge? So I did a prescription for a family a couple of weeks ago who normally gets a medication from their GP, but that has to be, sorry, a prescription from their GP that is dispensed by a community pharmacist, but that preparation has to be kept in the fridge, but the one that we dispense at Alderhay doesn't. So they've asked us for a one-off prescription to go on holiday, so they don't have to worry about having a fridge in the hotel room. Being on warfarin, anybody that is on warfarin will know that being on holiday and a change in your diet, your circumstances can all affect your blood results. So your prescribing team needs to be aware that you're going. And we always have a dialogue with our families when they're going on holiday about what we want them to do, what we want them to be a little bit more aware of. About your hand luggage, we would say put your medication in your hand luggage, just so, because that is much less likely to go missing or get thrown by somebody in an airport. And then one of the tiny tickers and people mentioned about milk. I can't remember which one it was, but we always say if you're on a specialised milk formula, discuss with the airline about whether you could have any additional baggage weight that doesn't cost you any money. Think about speaking to the accommodation again. Does it need to be in a fridge? Where you're going to house it when you're actually away? So oxygen, like I said, I'm not going to touch too much on this, but only to say that not many heart children require oxygen. Not many heart children require oxygen on a plane. But if you're on oxygen anyway as part of your treatment plan, whether you're an infant, a child or an adult, you need to discuss with your oxygen provider about where you need to go. Now, oxygen in the UK is paid for. Oxygen outside of the UK and on board an aeroplane is not paid for. So you would have to, a family would have to pay for that themselves. Okay, so like I said, I'm not going to touch too much about oxygen. Just know it's a very small number of people. If you're in that situation, please speak to your cardiac nurse specialist or your oxygen provider about what you need to do. Paperwork. So obviously when you go on holiday, we're all the same. I mean, I'm single and I don't have any kids, so I actually don't need a lot of paperwork, but certainly when I travel with friends with children and multiple people, then you're getting passport and ID and letter. So you need to kind of have all of this all together ready for travel. So on top of all your normal travel documentation that you would need for any flight or any trip outside of the UK, I said we can provide your cardiac centre can provide fit to fly letters if you're needed. Make sure you've got a clinic letter, an up-to-date clinic letter. If it has all of your medication on that is up to date and all correct, it would have contact numbers on as well. If your child has a pacemaker, make sure that you've got your pacemaker identity card with you, ready for security. And then if you're again a patient who has warfarin and you need to take an INR machine on holiday with you, your centre should be able to provide you with a letter to state that the machine, the lancets and the strips should travel with you inside the plane and not go in the hold. And then take with you your contact numbers for your nurse specialists, for the on-call team, so your main hospital switchboard and the cardiology ward, because obviously the likes of the nurse specialist, we're not there 24 hours a day, depending upon where you're traveling, and there will be a time difference. Obviously, the further away you go, your nurse specialist team might actually not be available. So always have the contact number for the ward. Security, think about security. I think with children who are just post-op or are waiting for an operation, or particularly have got a heart condition that causes them to be very tired, exhausted, breathless, anything like that, think about would they benefit from fast tracking through security? Do you need a lanyard? Think about a fast lane or anything like that. And again, just a reminder again, if you have a pacemaker, you need to take your ID card with you, and they'll do so, and you just raise your hand and tell security, and we've got somebody traveling with us who's got a pacemaker, and they're very used to dealing with children, probably adolescents and adults with pacemakers, maybe not so much used to having a baby with a pacemaker, but they're very used to pacemakers in general. So traveling long distances, and I've put on the top of this is good advice for everybody, a heart child, a not heart child, an adult, granny, uncle, John, whoever's coming with you on holiday. Frequent breaks, lots of walks and lots of hydration, particularly if you're traveling long distances, and particularly if you're traveling long distances in weather like this. So a lot of what we're talking about today actually applies for the UK at the moment, not just kind of traveling abroad into a hot climate. And then when you're there, so I think thinking back to that first slide about being prepared, if you're not an itinerary person or a planning person, it's probably a good idea to think about that, having an itinerary, being on holiday, where are you, what is it that you want to do while you're there, to get the best out of the trip for everybody that's going. So you might have a late night followed by a quiet morning, you might have a few days where you're really, really busy, and then you might have a day by the pool doing very little, or a day at the campsite doing nothing, or being in a hotel room with some AC just to have a little bit of a break. So think about an itinerary for your trip. If you're a family with a child with a heart condition under the single ventricle anatomy, think about the 10-spoon theory, and that will help you with your itinerary. And then think about getting around, like I said at the very beginning, where you're booking, where are you going, how far are people going to be expected to walk, how far away is your villa from the centre of town, how far is your swimming pool from your hotel room. Do you need to think about taking a buggy, even if your child has kind of progressed beyond a buggy, or whether you would need to think about, do you need to think about hiring a wheelchair, having access to a wheelchair, using something or taking something with you that would help with those days where the kids are actually just very, very tired, and you want to pop them in a buggy so they can have a little bit of a sleep, but everybody else, you can kind of still carry on with your day. And then sun, heat, cold advice. So the roundtable talks a lot about the scar. That is something we want you to look after. If you're particularly a new scar, we would want it covered. We want high factor cream on, but we want it covered and out of the sun, particularly a new scar. So a new scar for us, we probably say is around within about 6-12 months. You need to really, really look after that new skin that's growing kind of in that area. And then obviously, again, as I said before, about winter holidays, not just summer holidays. So a lot of the places, or the most popular place for people to go in the winter with children, obviously, is Lapland. And so you need to think about cold weather. You need layers, warming up, how you're going to be warm. But again, places like Lapland and all of the places that you can go to over there with young children are really designed to look after you, whether you have a heart condition or not. So they're used to having people who are get a bit cold and need to warm up. So it's not just about the heat. Think about if you're going to have a winter holiday, particularly going skiing or going to places like Lapland, how to kind of look after everybody. And I can't stress enough again about hydration, rehydration. Make sure everybody's drinking. Make sure your heart child is drinking. Make sure your heart child is they're on diuretics, are drinking and looking after themselves. Particularly if you're on warfarin, you're keeping an eye on your fluid intake, your diet intake. Are you all okay? Anybody got a dicky tummy from being abroad? Make sure that you're drinking bottled water or boiled water. Just kind of look after yourself from that point of view. INR, again, like I said before, have a conversation with the team before you leave about what their departmental policy is around when they would want an INR doing, kind of what you do, who do you ring for advice if the time difference is really quite significant. And then again, just always have with you the contacts at home. The beauty of the modern world, if you like, I sound really old when I say that, but having a smartphone and things is that everything is just to hand straight away here. You're not having to carry a business card, you're not having to carry all of this, because you just pop everything into your phone. And then some useful places for advice. I've put up the government website, because obviously that is often the first place people go, is gov.uk, and kind of I think it's / foreign travel, and then you can look at the country that you're going to. Little Hearts Matter has an absolutely fantastic booklet for families, for children who've got single ventricle anatomy. It's called Travel and Trips, and it's absolutely incredible. It's the best thing you could probably read if you've got a child with a single ventricle anatomy. Your individual cardiac centre website, the team at your own hospital, and your travel agency. Don't underestimate, if you're booking through a travel agency, how helpful they are at helping you with information around the area that you're actually visiting. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour around going on holiday. So I think most importantly, I would say, is please have fun. Please don't get too stressed out. I think if you do all the work before you go, it's much easier when you're there, because you know what you're doing and you've kind of made a plan about what you're going to do. Think about how you're going to sort yourself out if there is an accident or an injury, or you need to seek some medical advice. But what I can't stress more than anything is have some fun, because that's why you're actually going to go on holiday. Okay, thank you.
That was absolutely brilliant, Jill. Thank you so much. That was about 1,500 tips condensed into 10 minutes. That was incredible. I was frantically scribbling away, trying to make some notes as we went. If other people were doing that, don't fear. We're going to, as we mentioned, we'll send out the link. You'll be able to watch this back at your own time, pause, write things down. We're also going to compile some fact sheets and some information that we'll send to you and also pop on our website. So all of these hints and tips will be contained within that. But there was absolutely some brilliant information there, and some questions are starting to come in already. Jill, thank you very much for that. I think one of the things that just sort of I would take away from what you said is there's no silly questions, is there? So
No.
Don't worry, just ask anything. Someone else has probably asked that question before. Someone else has phoned up the nurse specialist and said, "Oh, can I get this bit of information?" Don't fret, don't worry, just ask.
Just ask, definitely.
And some really simple things around it. What you said about tour operators these days are great at looking after people, aren't they? We took our family to on holiday last year abroad, and we used a fast track system. The tour operators were brilliant. The people at the airports were fantastic. So if you ask, don't be shy. Do ask for help, and people will be there to support you and to help you. We'll come back to some of the questions, but the one that I was intrigued, excuse my ignorance, what is the 10-spoon theory? I'm going to set up the next video whilst you're explaining what the 10-spoon theory is, if that's okay.
Okay. So the 10-spoon theory comes from something called the 20-spoon theory, actually. So it's the 10-spoon theory is something that was developed or kind of taken control of or ownership of by the children of Little Hearts Matter.
Yeah.
And it's a way of describing how having a heart condition like that, or really any heart condition for a lot of children, affects their day-to-day life. So it's about having spoons of energy. So it's a bit like having a battery, that you are a battery, but particularly spoons of energy. So the theory was, when there was 20 spoons involved, is an adult who had a long-standing chronic illness put 20 spoons on a table when she was having dinner with some friends, and she was trying to explain to them how her condition affects her. So that was about 20 spoons of energy. So the children of Little Hearts Matter, because they have half a heart, they went, oh, well, we only have 10 spoons of energy because we've got half a heart, which is perfectly fine. So it describes a way of, they might use 3 spoons of energy, getting up in the morning, brushing the teeth, getting dressed, having the breakfast, going to school. So then they're already down to 7. It's only 9 o'clock in the morning. But then you might have a drink, so you might get a spoon of energy back. But then you might have to do PE, so then you lose a few more spoons. So it's about managing your energy levels over a period of time. And sometimes that you're borrowing from the following day, you're borrowing from the following day all the time, particularly things like when you're on holiday. So because you want to try and pack in as much as you possibly can while you're away, that you know, that's what we say about the itinerary, have quiet days, and maybe a late evening followed by a quiet morning. You might have a few busy days followed by a few quiet days. And so it's kind of managing spoons of energy.
I love that concept. That's such a brilliant concept. And yeah, what you were saying about managing the day and the itinerary there, one of the things we did before we went away was we went on Google, and we went on Google Maps, and we looked at how close hotel was to restaurants, to beach, to that sort of thing. And I went on a mapping tool and actually mapped out how far it would be. There's so many free mapping tools now. So we knew that our hotel was a quarter of a mile or half a mile from the nearest restaurants, and we knew we could sort of factor that into the energy levels, into what Zoe would be capable of doing. So some really practical tips there. Thank you very much. Right, if you're okay to stop sharing your screen, what I'm going to do next is Vicky from the Tiny Tickers team has put together a very quick 3-minute video all about insurance, because this is a topic that comes up time and time again on the Tiny Tickers Facebook groups, people asking about insurance. So we went to our people on the Facebook groups. We've got about 2,000 people on our groups now, and just said, right, can you tell us what you found out? And Vicky's just compiled that into a few-minute video. So we shall play this. It takes about 3 minutes, and then when we come back, we'll start going through the questions and answers. So if you've got any questions that you want to pop to Gill, then please do put them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll get through as many as we can. Right, so let's just share this quick little video then. Just bear with me whilst it's loading up. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Vicky, Head of Projects for Tiny Tickers, and we just wanted to give you a little bit of advice and some information on travel insurance. We know that this is a topic that comes up really regularly in the parent group, and we know it can cause some confusion and worry for people. So we'd like to just give you a little bit of information that we hope you find useful. So whilst we're not insurance experts and we can't endorse any particular provider, we did ask out in our parent group to see which providers that other parents of children with CHD had used. And these were the most common answers. So obviously every child is different, and everyone's needs will be different. So please do shop around and make sure you get a policy that is suitable for you and your child. It's also worth mentioning that most policies will include repatriation, which is important to look for, because that just means that your child and a carer can be brought home to the UK if medically necessary. So when you contact an insurer, they will sometimes ask you for a little bit of extra information before they can provide a policy for you, especially where pre-existing conditions are involved. So it's really useful to have to hand your child's age, full details of their condition, their exact medication and dosage, dates of any hospital admissions, dates of trips to A&E, and your destination and length of your trip. And when you're giving details of the condition, please do give details of whether there's any repair as well. Documents to take with you. So once you're heading off on your holidays, some really useful things to keep with you are a summary of your child's condition. If you don't have a concise summary, that is something that your cardiac liaison team can help with. So do ask them if you need a bit of help with that. You can consider having a translation made of that summary. So you can use an online translation tool just so that you have a version in the local language. Any recent doctor's letters and test results, and it's useful to have your cardiologist's contact details there too. Any pacemaker documents if that's relevant to your child. And of course, your insurance documents and the phone numbers should you need to make a query or a claim. And then finally, just a few more tips and a little bit of advice from us. Always declare everything at the time of booking your policy. Do make sure that the insurance company knows the exact details of your child's medical condition. We wouldn't want you to be faced with wanting to make a claim and them not paying out. Take out your travel insurance at the time of booking, and then that means that if you need to cancel for a medical reason, then you should be covered for that too. Take an emergency credit card with you. Some healthcare systems abroad will ask you to pay medical bills up front, and you can then claim that back on your insurance at a later date. Do some research about the local healthcare system. Look for the local hospital, pharmacy, familiarise yourselves with where they are, and the local emergency numbers too. And the most important one, look forward to your trip and have fun. Enjoy making those memories and have a really good time.
There we go. So just a few pointers on insurance there. So when Gill comes back, we'll start going through our Q&A. That's good. There you are, Jill. Hello. Right, so we've got a few questions which I'll fire at you. We've got a few minutes left just to answer some of these. We'll try our best to get through them all. The first one that I've seen is, can you travel by plane if your child has an NG tube?
Yes. Shouldn't be any restriction at all about being, and even like being way up in the air in an aeroplane, it shouldn't cause any problems at all.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And a similar vein about flying, we also had a question about whether it's safe to fly when you're pregnant with a heart baby. So someone got in touch with us, they'd already booked a holiday, and then they received their diagnosis at the 20-week scan. So what was the situation in
okay, so in terms of being pregnant with a baby, going on holiday, absolutely fine in your first 2 trimesters. Going on holiday with a heart baby while you're pregnant is a difficult one to answer, because I think if the cardiologist that I work with was here, and we get asked that question every so often, is that we've given them a diagnosis but actually they've got a holiday booked, is to have a little think about what they would do, and what would you do if you delivered early, how early, and where are you traveling, and are you traveling on your own, and what is the actual heart condition. So is it a heart condition that's going to require treatment in the first couple of days or the first week or 2 of life, or is it a heart condition that probably, you know, a baby would be born in the UK and might spend a few days in hospital and then go home. So it's going to be very difficult. Yes, I would say you need to speak to the cardiology team around what they would think about you going on holiday while you're pregnant with a heart child.
Yeah, it's a classic example. I think if you've got any big questions like that, then always seek that advice before you make any decisions.
So I know I've looked after a few women where that's happened. I've been working in the fetal centre at the women's. So one was a baby with a transposition, and we kind of went, really sure you should go on holiday to the middle of Portugal to a villa when you're having a baby with this, and they decided to cancel. And the other one was a baby that had a fallow, and they went, and because I think they were going to a family wedding, so it's something that they really needed to go to, and we were saying, well, in all likelihood everything will be okay after baby was born, so that they went, but one didn't. And so it does very much depend what the condition is. So yes, speak to the cardiologist,
have that discussion and make a decision then. Brilliant, thank you. And then the next question I've seen is it says, my little one only takes oat milk due to a milk allergy. Obviously that's in a carton and liquid, so how does that work for flying? So presumably that filters into what you were saying in your presentation about check with that changes.
I would check with the airline, because I think it's like a lot of things about holidays. Some airlines bend the rules for you and really help you out, and some airlines are very strict and don't bend the rules at all. It could be that they would ask that the milk is decanted into less than 100 mils in a number of bottles, and they might let you do that. They probably wouldn't let you walk on with a carton of oat milk, but I would say check with the airline.
Yeah, and generally with liquids, I think one of the things you said in the presentation was about speak to them, because they might allow you to take more liquids than you would normally be expected to be able to take with you. Next question is, my 4-year-old is 6 months post aortic valve repair. His medication needs to be stored in the fridge all the time. How's best to manage that if you're traveling for half a day or a day when you're going abroad? So the actual storing of medication during the transit, I suppose.
So we've always said a cool bag, ice packs. Is there another preparation? I was saying when I was talking that Alder Hey provides a warfarin preparation that doesn't need to be kept in the fridge. So it might be worth asking, is there an alternative that you could use? But then other than that, it would be probably a cool bag and some ice packs.
Yeah, brilliant. And again, that's another one that you could flag up to the travel company airline in advance and just speak to them about as well, presumably. Let them know that situation. And just we've put together some general advice about traveling with medication, which we're going to send out in the email following the webinar. It's got a link to a video that we've seen, which is a really good video. So there will be some more specific traveling with medication and liquid advice coming your way as well. And then currently the last one that I've got, so you've just got a minute or two if there are any more questions to get them in before we finish. The last question I've seen so far though is there a way to keep my child warmer in the swimming pool? So temperature regulation is always an issue, isn't it?
Definitely. And I think a wetsuit, or an all over, the swimming suits that are for protection from the sun, so a UV blocking swimsuit that's actually covers the arms and the legs. I think the other thing I would say is you might not be able to control it so much when they're in there, but actually managing them when they come out. So towels that are close to hand, warm towels, which they would be if it was sunny, and if you're going somewhere that's a bit colder, maybe think something like a dry robe or something like that, just so when they come out, they're wrapped in a towel and maybe a fleece on nice and quickly, just to kind of get their temperature back up as quick as you can.
But those fleece-lined dry robes are really popular now, aren't they? You see them on the open water swimmers, and they're everywhere now. So that's a really good tip, is the fleece-lined dry robes. And I think you can get wraparound versions for sort of babies as well. So that's something to look into. Brilliant. Okay, well, that's all the questions that have come in as far as I can see. I'm just having a quick scan through the chat, but I think we've answered all the questions that come in. So just whilst I'm wrapping up, I would just pop out another poll. I would be really grateful if everyone could take just 5, 10, 15 seconds to answer this other poll, which is a little bit of feedback for us about the webinar. And let's see if we can get it. There we go. We've launched it. You should be able to answer that. How have you found the webinar? It's just got 3 really quick questions. Have you found it useful? Do you think you're going to use some of the tips that were presented in this webinar? And would you be interested and keen to attend future support webinars? And that's just some really, let's see, has that come up? I need to stop sharing the other one. There we go. I can launch it now. There we go. You should be able to see that now. And if people were able just to fill that in really briefly, that would be absolutely brilliant, because that really helps us with our feedback to our funders and also to planning future topics. So in summary, I think this is a tricky subject. It's something that comes up a lot in our Facebook groups when we chat to parents. But as we've seen tonight, with some planning, with some preparation, with asking the right people the right questions, you can go away, you can have a really enjoyable time, you can make those memories, and you can do something really special. So we're going to follow up with a video of the webinar with all the handouts, all the signposting, all the links. You don't need to worry too much about that. If you want to find out more about our work, then you can go on our website, which is www.tinytickers.org. Please do follow us on social media, on all of the sites. They've even got me doing TikTok videos these days. So whatever social media platforms on, you'll be able to find Tiny Tickers. And of course, join our Facebook groups where you'll get loads of peer-to-peer advice and tips as well. A huge thank you, Gill. That was really, really brilliant advice. I can see some people echoing those comments in the chat and saying that it was really useful. So thank you so much for your time putting that together for us. We really appreciate it. And thank you also, I should say, to the other members of the Tiny Tickers team who have contributed either on camera or behind the scenes. Their help's really appreciated as well. Most of all, thank you all for attending. I hope you have a really good time if you do go away on holiday. Get some of those holiday pics on our Facebook group if you're a member. We'd love to see it. I hope that's been useful for you, and have a great evening. Thank you very much, everyone.